Good Sunday morning, everybody. Landy here. Just wanted to give you guys a quick review, overview, skim through of this brand new book that I got. It's from AK Interactive. Specifically, this book is titled Techniques to Paint All Types of Flesh and Miniatures, Flesh and Skin. They've been previewing this one over the last few months on their Facebook page, so I've been really excited to get my hands on it and see it. And I stopped in at my local model shop, specifically Hill Country Hobby here in San Antonio, Texas, and he had one he had just gotten in, so I jumped at the chance. I didn't even plan on getting it, but when I saw it, I just knew that I had to get it, because a lot of times these books are in short supply and they run out because of how good they are a lot of times. Specifically, so let's just go through it. It's only about 87 pages, and that includes a lot of photos and stuff like that. I know you guys are itching for me to go ahead and open it, so let's go ahead and just give you a quick skim through. Interesting to note, because it's AK Interactive, they have a bit of a partnership with Abtlung 502 that produces a bunch of different oil colors, and specifically they offer a flesh color set that looks really great. I mean, just look at the tones and stuff that you can get with that. Oil painting for flesh is definitely out of my wheelhouse, but I've always wanted to give it a shot. I've got this particular figure that I just stripped clean to redo, and I may consider doing oils on it for the first time, just to see how that goes. We'll see. But anyway, it gives you a quick overview of skin tones. What I really like about this book so far, because I've only skimmed through about halfway, I'm trying to enjoy it slowly instead of just blasting right through it, is that there's a lot of instruction that goes along with the actual photos and step-by-steps. And there's a lot of sort of, I guess, scholarly work that was put into this book, which really just adds that extra level of informative process, if you will. Here they're covering all the different skin tones and how different regions affect it. And then they move on and they talk about two different types, as far as, you know, using an airbrush and a brush, or just using a brush, which most of us miniature tabletop wargamers are accustomed to. But for some of the larger models, you may end up using your airbrush to do your skin tones and stuff. Now, here on this page, you'll see that they're using the AK Interactive stuff, but the book does not specifically require you to use that to do any of the how-to stuff, which is really nice. They've got a color wheel, which is always useful to kind of give you some color theory here if you've never really done anything like that. And it also has a couple of different definitions, if you will, before you get into anything. So they talk about glazes, they talk about shadows, really basic stuff, and then they talk about your materials and what you may have on hand and what you might use. This is kind of what I was getting at. They don't really, you know, they say use whatever you feel like. Some of the steps may be adapted from using the AK stuff specifically, but, you know, use your best judgment. And then they started the book with Dwarfs, and I love Dwarfs, so this book was already a winner in my book. But this is, I believe this particular figure is a 54mm dwarf, so it's actually kind of about this size, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody knows, in the comments section. But they talk about things like hair, climate, and things like that affecting it. There's a step-by-step for doing some eyes on a larger figure, which I believe this would end up being probably like a 90mm size figure or bigger. They cover a little bit of airbrush stuff, and the technique for getting the most out of it. They cover oil painting for flesh, so that's why I was kind of saying I may do that with this one just to see how that turns out for me, because the results look pretty stunning because of the amount of working time you have with the oils. This particular section here covers the cover art bust, and I'll just kind of quickly skim through it. But they also talk about doing stuff like face paint and things like that. Here's a 1/35th scale figure, which is closer to what most of us tabletop gamers would be working with. And they kind of give you this grayscale primer that a lot of folks have been doing lately, and then they apply their colors selectively to the different areas. So it's definitely got a lot of step-by-step, but like I said, they don't tell you to use a specific paint brand or color or, you know, call out numbers or anything like that. So it's kind of like if you have a flesh color that looks relatively close to that, go with that, because that's probably going to be the best one. Because the technique is the same regardless of the brand of paint, if you're working with acrylics for this particular stuff. But I mean, world-class work done here in this one. They also cover stuff like prep, color transitions, doing your color swatches and stuff to kind of build up your colors. That's why they were calling it the color transition section. I mean, just absolutely stunning work. This section is really exciting for me, and I'm excited to kind of tear into this when I get a free chance to read. It's talking about artificial light and illumination, so like what we were talking about earlier in the week in the Facebook group about OSL, object source lighting, and how it colors the entire figure in a certain way, and you just kind of have to always be mindful of it to achieve effects like this. Even on these dwarfs, for example, it's the same dwarf 4 different ways based on the lighting conditions. So that's really neat that you can transform a figure that way just by doing something like that. And then here's another step-by-step on a bust. So this is a much bigger figure, but again, the techniques that you use get adapted based on the scale, but only ever so slightly, because you're still trying to pay attention to the most important things, and that's the bridge of the nose, the crease of the eyes, and stuff like that to make a face stand out. Specifically, let me just go back here real quick. They kind of say, like here, Korean school painting a German crew, and then over here, Spanish school using acrylics. So it's 2 different artists working on very similar models, but from 2 different places, and the school of thought behind painting the figures to achieve the look that they did. Phenomenal work there. And this is another important piece for us, because they're covering painting using a black base coat, which many of us do. When you're doing a lot of flesh areas, it usually behooves you to paint over a white base coat, but they do it with the black here to show you that it can be done. You just kind of really have to make sure that that first initial base coat is pretty strong, and then build up from that. So, and just more phenomenal work here. And again, like I said, though, the book, being 86 pages long, really only had maybe like I'd say 1/4 of it that was just pure photo pages without any sort of explanation. A good majority of this book has explanation of the step that they're working on, which I really, really like, because in the past I've collected a good number of books on painting, but sometimes you get a book and you're excited to learn the technique, and then it turns out that it's just a book of pictures, and that's fine for kind of learning by learning by copying and, you know, trial and error and stuff. But if there's something particular that they want you to pay attention to, this book does a really good job of calling that out to you. And I think that for the price point, now here in the States, I paid $20 for it. I'm not sure what the international price might be, but I think that for a resource like this, it's well worth its money, and it'll pay for itself in the results that you're going to get if you kind of adapt the techniques that are listed in here for yourself. So yeah, this definitely has a huge thumbs up from me. Let me know in the comments section below if anybody else has gotten it and what you guys think about it. All right, catch you guys later.